Okay, so for some tips and tricks for social media, I think first thinking through, do you even want to be on social media is a big thing. A lot of people think that you should be on social media because it's free. And to some extent, I agree with that. And then others, I don't, just because doing social media right takes a lot of time. And if you don't enjoy it, there are other avenues that you could be spending your time in, like networking, SEO, building your website, workshops, events, all sorts of things other than social media. So if social media is not your jam, don't do it. Don't feel pressure to do it. If you are going to do social media, I would really, really, really recommend niching down and focusing on who's your audience and where are they. So if your audience is of a certain age or of a certain demographic, or is a super professional person, it probably dictates where they're spending their time on social media. The point of you being on social media as a professional is to get in front of your ideal client. So if your ideal client is someone who is a networker and, working all the time and a perfectionist and all these type things, they're probably spending a lot of their time on LinkedIn or on Instagram. And so wanting to know your audience so then you can have a presence there. And then each platform is going to have a little bit of different norms, I suppose. So, Instagram, of course, they're all becoming more similar, but it used to be like Instagram was much more like video and graphic focused. Facebook, which much more like events and information focused, and then LinkedIn being like the most professional of them, but they've all kind of like morphed into a little bit of the same thing. So again, you just want to make sure you're not wasting your time and you're being in front of your audience, because if your audience is, stay-at-home parents who are overwhelmed and stressed or depressed and not being seen by their partner, like they're probably not going to be on LinkedIn. So you probably don't need to have a presence on LinkedIn. They're probably going to be in Facebook groups for, stay-at-home parents or for moms. They're going to be on Instagram, like thinking through those type spaces. So you really want to be consistent with how you're coming across, and you really want to make sure that all these profiles that you have or any social media is a business profile. This is one, just to make it seem more legitimate because you are a real business, and two, to protect you and your privacy and any type of dual relationships that can form, because with business profiles, people can they don't request a friendship. And so that means they can like you, they can see your stuff, but you don't see their stuff. And so Facebook makes it really easy to do that. Instagram makes it really easy to do that. And Facebook and Instagram, since they're all Meta, you connect them all together, and then you can schedule your posts through the Meta Business site and make it really consistent across the platforms. Facebook is really good to have if you're hosting a lot of workshops, if you're hosting a lot of events in a sense, because you can create your events and they're really shareable from there. But again, they're very connected in the way that they're set up now, Instagram and Facebook. But tips and tricks in a sense of really making sure you know why you're on social media. So for me, for my therapy practice, I used to be on social media a lot more than I am now. I kind of stopped adding a lot of content wise because things just changed in my life and changed in my practice. But what I was using social media for is not so much to get new clients, but when clients found me through word of mouth or through my website or different blogs that I wrote, they used my social media profile as I want it to be used as like a legitimizer in a sense, for them to be able to see a little bit more about me and what working with me is going to look like. So of course there are certain things that I post on there. I don't really share a lot of personal stuff, but they get a little bit of a vibe of like how I talk and how I show up in session through my videos. Lots of educational posts, and also a little bit of like advocacy around inclusion and just making sure that individuals know a little bit of what I'm about. And so a lot of times it's not like clients were like, hey, I randomly came across your Instagram profile and now I want to see you. Usually it was, hey, I saw your website and then I checked out your Instagram and you seemed like cool and I wanted to come see you. So other people want to use social media as their first funnel, meaning they want their content and their videos to be shared and for someone to send someone content that you created and being like, wow, this therapist is amazing to follow. You should check her out. That wasn't really my goal. But if that is your goal, then you're really going to want to like spend a lot of time honing in and making sure that you're not just wasting your time creating content, and that that content is actually meeting the ever-changing algorithms of social media, that you're responding to comments, that you're being really engaging, that you're posting to stories, you're using hashtags, you're using like SEO keywords and everything. And if you're ever looking to have a larger platform than just one-on-one work, establishing a social media platform now can be helpful because it means you've had a profile for longer. And then in 3 years, when you want to establish a group practice or a wellness platform or course building or whatever it is, you know, you've already just got a little bit of a head start on that following and stuff like that. But again, for just building one-on-one clients, it's not necessary to have hundreds of followers. It's not necessary to have social media at all. But if you are doing it, then you want to make sure that you're meeting your audience where they're at and you're scheduling things out. You're batching your content in a sense of whether it's on Canva or your videos or whatever it might be. You're creating a bunch of content at once, maybe for the whole month, maybe for the whole year. And then you're setting a time on your calendar once a month to go into Facebook or Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever it might be, and schedule out your stuff. So then you're not having to be on your phone every day. You're not having to, you know, literally go through that process more than you need to. And then you really want to make sure that you're just staying confidential, of course, if you need to abide by that, but then also that you're like having disclaimers on there and ethically, you know, showing up on social media. If you are licensed, most of your boards are going to have social media policies that you've got to abide by. And then there should be disclaimers listed on all your professional profiles that pretty much say, you know, this does not establish a therapeutic relationship between you and I. This is strictly for educational purposes. I think on the shared OneDrive, if you have access to that, there's some examples of disclaimers on there. And then another good way of having a social media profile and sharing content, but not content that always has to be created by you, is finding and following other people in the community or in your niche that create great content and sharing that. If you're sharing that, making sure you're always, you know, giving credit to the original creator, linking to their profile, calling them out, you know, and yeah, I don't know. I forgot what I was going to say. But yeah, again, bringing it back to the space of, do you just feel pressured to have social media because it's something free and it can increase your visibility, or there's lots of influencers out there in a sense, or is it something that you really do want to do and is going to really help you, or is just like a great creative outlet that you want for your business? But again, those things shift and change. I did that in the beginning a lot and focused a lot of my energy to that. I don't regret it, but it's just not something that I do now and not something that is needed to grow an insurance-based or a cash-based practice. But yeah, the biggest tips are batch content, create content relative to your niche and not just like general quotes. And wellness tips, you really want to make it targeted to your ideal client. And some of the helpful things in being able to create content like that is kind of think of the things that you on repeat say to your clients. On repeat are kind of themes that you talk about with your current clientele, and being able to like depersonalize those. Of course, not using any identifying information, but being able to pull out some helpful things. And again, like the creativity is super nice to be able to pull in there, and that's usually what catches and engages people. But it can also be really good professionally for networking. I know as therapists, lots of Facebook groups out there, so you can join those, of course, from your personal profile, but sometimes it's nice to have a shareable link if you don't have a website, if you have a business Facebook page or something like that. But yeah, tips and tricks is really just like the biggest, I think, is honestly to be intentional about it, batch your stuff, and then schedule it out so you're not on your phone at all times. And then there are tons of people who do it right. And so follow those profiles, see what they're doing, see how they're consistent in their fonts and their colors and their lingo. And, you know, just being able to replicate that. But social media in itself, if you're wanting that to be one of your main drivers of, main drivers of new content, there are literally like courses and all the things. It's like a whole business in itself. So, a lot of work goes into having tons of followers and the benefits that come from that. But again, I guess maybe this video is more so to relieve some pressure. You don't have to show up on social media if you don't want to in those ways. And if you do want to, it can be super beneficial. But it is a lot of work. But yeah, I feel like that's enough of a ramble. Maybe not so much tips and tricks, but maybe more so just the intentionality behind thinking through, is social media right for you in your practice? And if you're doing it, making sure you're really focused in on your ideal client and your niche so you don't end up wasting your time.